all of the information's from the mental health textbook. There's an ATI textbook too. Of course, you know, that's more abbreviated, as we know already, it's outline form pretty much. But you know, if I always think ATI is good right before a test, just to look at the outlines. If you're not, you know, if you're not particularly a note taker or something like that, that's probably the best bet for you, with before a test. But to read the information for the first time, the textbook's the best part. What did you think of that 20-question quiz last night? Was not bad? And that other thing is not counted that Ms. Reynolds sent you. It's just gonna help with our lecture content, on,
Neurocognitive disorder,
and it's coming up like not until like
August.
at the end of the first week of August, I think.
I only hope to, they're sending it out.
The due date on FA Davis though is the 20th of this month for her assignment.
But I don't wanna let the cat out of the bag, but I have to. This one is the only one that's for credit in mental health. This is the only 4-credit assignment.
I can extend that, cause we want it open until you're ready to read that stuff, you know what I mean? So I'll extend that. Can you send me an email? Did you send me an email yet about the switch?
No.
Can you remind me? Can you
I'll,
remind me?
yeah, I mean, it's,
I think on the schedule, she's scheduled to be here on the 1st of August.
no, but the actual lecture that she's doing it isn't until August something.
So there's other lectures she's doing before that one?
Yeah.
Really? Well, that's confusing.
Right.
We don't mean to be confusing. I don't mean to be confusing or miswrite, but.
No, it was
I
just,
wasn't- I
it was
wasn't-
a little accident, I think, she just was being, zealous.
Okay.
Excited, I should say that, excited.
Everybody has a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Cool.
Before we start,
Yeah.
so do we print out the templates that are due Thursday and hand them in? Is that correct?
You can print them out. They're actually at the back of the ATI book also. You can type into them if you like that, like when because basically what you want on those templates are what you're going to use as a study guide, you know, the information that you want. They don't have to be they need to be concise and not like elaborate and like 12 bullet points per little box. You just want the important information on them. You can print them out. You can, if you don't feel like using paper, I think you can make that into like a savable file and send it. Either way, it's
So
fine.
I have them.
Could email them?
I can.
Yeah, that's fine. But you might want to print them out for yourself, do like a little binder, put them in like the plastic sleeves or something. They're a really good study guide. I wish I had something like that in nursing school, for learning meds. These slides are on SONUS. Having a really hard time with YouTube videos. It has to go through like the Pope or God, I don't know, but the head of IT can't okay it, I learned today. I just thought we couldn't have YouTube in our offices, and you know, and the playful things in our office, but we were told everything was available in the classrooms. It was, they did an update last week, like PowerPoint's not even on here. Like he went through the back door to get a PowerPoint, like off my desktop in my office, cause I'm on like a remote when I logged in. Craziness. But the videos are pretty good, unless I would have deleted them, okay? And not shared them with you. But I can't share them today because YouTube's a no-no. Learning outcomes, so if you are able to, look at the learning outcomes after class, after you've read, and answer the questions, be able to discuss the lesson process, be able to discuss components of data developmental theories, you'll be in good shape with the content that we get, okay? The World Health Organization is pretty much the, CDC of the world. You know, the CDC reports to the World Health Organization. and really, is able to determine the different issues that go on with those disease processes in the world. And they really, in recent years, have focused on mental health. This is their definition of mental health, that we used to be psychiatric nursing, and we've gone to psych mental health. I think your book is actually psychiatric / mental health nursing. The term mental health is just used more widely nowadays. It has less of a stigma to it. Because we want to be mentally healthy, you know what I mean?
We're going with this definition.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask you for a definition on a test though, you know what I mean? Some characteristics of mental health. Mental health provides individual with the capacity for rational thinking, communication skills, learning, emotional growth, resilience, and self-esteem. As we go through tonight's slides, in addition to what we're learning on the clinical unit, we're actually having a little bit of an orientation at Fairmont with the staff development. She's like utilization review too, like she has 3 different things that she does at that place. She's actually coming in, and it was super perfect, because I said we're going there at 11:30, and she's like, that's the time I was gonna ask you, it could be 11:30, it's like, oh, you know, luckily she would say 3 or something, because that would just throw everything through, we would have had like a 12-hour lunch or something, 4-hour lunch. Mental illness is considered to be a significant behavioral or psychological syndrome. You know, a lot of times people are debilitated by mental illness. It just consumes their life, and they become sick in other ways because of their emotional status. Mental illness is synonymous with when you can have a diagnosis from a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So you want to, like Alzheimer's, you know, there's a definition for that. Your thinking is being impaired. Major depression, the mood is affected. You know, manic depression, you have episodes of mania and episodes of depression. And, you know, all of the diagnosis we will see in class we'll probably see in the facilities. Lower Bucks is mostly a geriatric population. Every once in a while, somebody might be on Medicare for, sometimes when people are on disability, they can get Medicare early. So we might see some younger people, but most of them will be, I believe, 60 or over. They don't consider it 65. This slide paints this picture, and this is online, and it's big enough for you to see. Just like there's, I think during like the theory lecture last semester, we talked about the health wellness continuum, or the health illness continuum, and it was like a big, green and red light in terms of illness being on the red and danger, and green being on the healthy side, and just the ways that, very similar to the mental health, in terms of how that there's different phases, how you can slide through the different phases. You're not always in the healthy phase. You're not always in the ill phase. You can fluctuate in and out of those phases depending on how your disease process is going. So we were talking about mental health and the medications that might be prescribed, and somebody decides to stop their meds because they don't have the money this month, or somebody might start eating a food that's contraindicated for the med that was ordered. Somebody was out for a prolonged time in the sun, and photophobia is one of the side effects of this particular side of this med. So there could be problems with that. So it's you don't have to stay in any one place, and you can surely move in and out of the continuum. Mentally healthy the middle-ish would be like some mental health issues, and then the red area, you know, probably diagnosed with a mental health disorder. This is FYI, this historical perspectives. Linda Richards was the first psychiatric nurse. She's probably only one of like 10 nurses, you know, that like, I say famous, because she's not famous outside the nursing realm, you know. But she was like the first psychiatric nurse that really specialized in helping people with mental health and psychiatric issues. 50s and 60s were when we started seeing patients' rights, and psychiatric facilities were getting better. They weren't like sanitariums where they just threw people to be, so people would all be in a group and be away from the general public, and so they were safe in this place. The conditions weren't good in many, if any, of the places. They're all pretty crappy. Psychotropic medications. A lot of sedatives in the late 1800s were popular, but it wasn't until the 1950s that some psychotropic meds came into play, like lithium and Thorazine. Even after the sedative medications in the late 1800s, also late 1800s, early 1900s, barbiturates were becoming popular. Hildegard Paplow is another famous nurse. She actually came up with like a theory for psychiatric nursing. They're actually calling it a framework, not a theory. It's like a fine line between the two. But she was from the 50s also. I think Linda Richards from the 50s also. How did we get here? 1960, 1980, they had something called deinstitutionalization. Has anybody ever heard of that? What do you know about it?
When they released all the mental health clients onto the streets and they turned into homeless.
Yes, and some of them probably still are homeless. Anybody heard of Byberry up in Northeast Philadelphia, almost outside the city? They closed, I believe, in the late 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And what happened, they discharged the people, and they had nowhere to go, because they were like that, Byberry was their home. So Byberry closed, and what do you do with the people? So they were basically shown the front door, and a lot of them became homeless. And then if they, you know, just think if you're homeless, are you worrying about your next meal, or are you worrying about getting your meds, you know? So it was a cycle that people really couldn't get back on their feet if they didn't have family or friends to take them in. And it was like a vicious cycle that, you know, if they were hospitalized in an acute setting, when they got discharged, they didn't have the support to help them. So that's deinstitutionalization. People were discharged from the hospital because of closings. The places were closing because there wasn't much funding for them. I'm too young to have been to Byberry, but I've worked with people that that's where they went for psych. So we're going to Fairmont and Lower Bucks. They went to Byberry and saw some crazy, I hate to use the word crazy, it's really not appropriate to say crazy when we're talking about mental health, but really out there things, you know, really have seen a lot of things that you never think you'd see. The Mental Health Care Centers Act, when they start doing deinstitutionalization back in the 60s, they tried to pass it, but it was never adequately funded, and these hospitals closed. That's why the deinstitutionalization happened. You know, shorter inpatient stays, people would get better, but they'd go back outside home or being homeless, and it was a cycle that they went back into the acute care, a short-term stay, and they just never, you know, couldn't be monitored as well as they were, even though they were really poor conditions in these long-term places. They were still monitored pretty well and were kept safe at least. What percentage of the homeless do you think are mentally ill? This is a stat from a few years ago, it's not a recent stat.
Extremely high.
25%.
Oh.
25%, which is still a lot. But And I always wonder, like, how do you get that to that number, you know? Are you going out and surveying every homeless person you see? I mean, some people, some homeless have really good hiding spots, you're not gonna be able to find them to survey them, you know? So I was wondering, and who am I if I'm doing the survey, who am I to know if they have mental health issues? Are they gonna be able to tell you they have mental health issues, you know? So more recently, from the 80s, significant change in mental health with treatment and delivery, prevention. It's been less of a stigma in recent years to say you have a mental health disorder. One of my high school friends, just this morning, because I'm a Facebook addict, posted, just had a great therapy session with Dr. So-and-so. I mean, I really get a lot out of our sessions. Like, you know, it's not a stigma to say, hey, I'm seeing a therapist for whatever reason. She doesn't come out and say what her issues are in life, but, you know, why she finds the need to post that. It's a common thing. People aren't as secretive as they used to be. Focus on prevention, really important. I mean, America does a really poor job at prevention for both medical issues and psychiatric issues. It's just, you know, Europe does a pretty good job at it, but they really, we don't see the doctor unless we're sick. You know, we don't get preventative care. You know, sometimes people do like the Weight Watchers or join a gym to get money back from their insurance, but, you know, people in Europe and even Canada do it without getting those kickbacks from their insurance company. It's just not the mindset that we do in America as a whole. Of course, individuals are different. A case management focus, so having a case manager follow a patient from different levels of care is very important. So you have that one person to follow up and make sure everything's being taken care of. The 90s was called the Decade of the Brain. I think George Bush the first named that. I don't remember during the 90s being called Decade of the Brain. I just remember afterwards, you know, hearing that's what they called it. It could have just been a governmental thing, I don't know. They've really focused on the brain and how the brain is, you know, is showing that there's issues with the brain that is causing a lot of the mental health issues. DSM-5 is a way to code different diagnoses for insurance purposes and reimbursement purposes. It's ICD-9, 10 codes are more medical focused, although they do have quite a few of the mental health diagnoses on there. So you get this, when I was in nursing school, it was DSM-3. Do you remember, did you have one before 3, Ms. Ray?
Mine must have been 1 then.
But back in the mid-90s, it was DSM-3R, so it was a revised version of 3. I don't know why I remember that, I really don't know why I remember that, it's really strange that I do. Maybe because I worked as a psych tech, I don't know. But it's a coding system that it gives it, looks at everything, and it really is for reimbursement for the most part. When we talk about ICD-9 codes for Medicare, they have different indicators, like things that, you know, diagnoses that you have. When you go home, you can't come back within 3 weeks or something. That's a really problem with mental health, because mental health, have you heard the term frequent flyers? You know, the patients come in with the same diagnosis all the time, or similar diagnosis, or complications from their main diagnosis. Just working in mental health for the couple years that I did as a student, it's amazing how many people come back with the same problem. So, you know, they went off their meds, they needed, I always say 3 hots in a cot, like prisoners need 3 hots in a cot. They needed somewhere to live and eat, so that might be the reason why they sought psychiatric help again. So performance indicators are indicators that you can't, you know, for certain diagnoses you can't, you shouldn't be rehospitalized, or the hospital won't get paid like the next time. actually the readmission happens. They keep really close track of that. I don't think I'm gonna open this. Let's see. If you're unable to open this on your computers or phones or however you do it, I can make a copy of it. It's just a 2-page PDF. So HUDAS is the World Health Organization Disability Assessment Scale. Sometimes it's called Disability Assessment Schedule. So HUDAS, the World Health Organization, covers the domains of functioning, including all these things. So they look at these mental health disabilities and score them in a way on a scale that sees what kind of additional services patients might need. This is the Medi-Mental Status Exam, and this is just one of there's I think 10 or 12 items on the Medi-Mental Status Exam. Do you remember from last semester at all? What was on it? Ask the patient to count from 100 backwards in threes, or spell the word world backwards. Pick up the piece of paper, you tell them a very short statement to do, like an order to do. Pick up the paper, fold it in half and hand it to me. And if they can do that, they get like the full 3 points. If they can't do that, they get 2 or 1 points depending on how much of that they can do. And it's amazing how many people don't get the full points. You think they're lucid, you think they're cognitively with it, but lo and behold, you're asking them to do some simple things. Counting backwards from 100, you don't have to do it, fast. I'd have to think about it a couple seconds. Okay, 100, 97, 94. So it's okay if they take a minute, but some people, can't do that or spell the word world backwards. They have to know their name. They have to be oriented, like name, date of birth. Show them a pen. They need to tell you that it's a pen. Show them, point to your watch. They have to say what it is. And some people just cognitively aren't with it enough to do that. So this is one of the clinical paperwork we're going to be going over on Saturday morning. And I'll give them to all of you, and I'll put extras on that SONUS too.
Is a mini mental exam just for your memory?
Mini mental health exam or mini mental status exam sometimes. It's basically a memory.
Okay.
A memory. People with psychosis or dementia aren't going to score very well. Personality. Definition of personality here. Characteristic way that a person feels and behaves. Pattern of behavior that each person evolves both consciously and unconsciously as his or her style of way or life of being. Lifestyle specialists believe that people continue to develop and change throughout life. There's an assumption that there's always a possibility for renewal and growth in adults. If people are miserable in their 20s, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die miserable in their 80s type thing. That's what that means. Stages are associated with age. However, personality is influenced by temperament. You're inborn, what you were born with, those personality characteristics, and the environment. Behaviors from an unsuccessful stage or a stage that you really don't want to be in life can be modified and corrected and actually work out in the later stage. Do you remember Maslow? This is on SONUS, but knowing the basic needs in the lower couple areas of the pyramid have to be met before we can go anywhere near psychological needs. So in the middle, the blue and yellow parts here, the psychological needs, these are the things that we need to accomplish in that part of the pyramid. these are things that are needed to accomplish that part of the pyramid. We can't go into that, the biggest, phase, the, self-actualization until these things are accomplished. For personality stages overlap, and individuals may be working on tasks for more than one stage at a time. Individuals may become fixed in a certain stage and are developmentally delayed because of it. In the mental health settings, you'll see adults functioning in a trust versus mistrust development stage. Remember what age that was about? Yeah, very young, and preschool, the toddler to preschool age. So you have adults dealing with that trust versus mistrust. How they're going to be successful with therapy sessions. How are they going to be compliant with what their healthcare providers are telling them if they're so leery of their care providers. So Sigmund Freud believes that basic character is formed by age 5, and there's 3 components of personality: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is I want, the ego is I need, and the superego is I should. And as we get older in life, we go through id to ego to superego. Our conscious self is memories that we have that we're aware of. Preconscious and subconscious are ones that can be recalled with maybe some help with a behavioral therapist maybe. Memories, one is unable to bring to the conscious awareness, may be assessed with hypnosis or medications. Erickson, we talked about last semester, his 8 stages. Infancy, trust versus mistrust, 18 months to 3 years, and now autonomy versus shame and doubt, all the way up to the older adult, which we talked a lot about last semester, ego integrity versus despair. Failing at that age, people, they start to worry about things they haven't accomplished in life, and they really dwell upon that, and, try to make things better in their relationships that they have. That's just a little bit more information about the developmental stages. That's on Summers too. Sometimes in different cultures there might be stigmas happening with mental illness. Initially, members of the community versus mental health professionals recognize deviation from social norms. Relatives or those close to the individual are less likely than non-relatives to label than mental illness. When somebody lives in close proximity or you have a lot of contact with your family member or friend, you might not see, or the behaviors might not be shown to close family members. So it's usually people outside the circle that will begin to label or be able to see that there's been a change in mental status. The last bullet there, poverty, folks that are in the poverty level, whatever, I don't know what that yearly salary is, I think under $7,000 a year or something crazy like that, are more likely to display mental health and mental illness issues. Middle and upper class seek psychiatric help sooner. When people are more educated, they seem to see mental health issues sooner. Religion and types of professions associated with early outreach for psychiatric assistance. So, community groups that you might belong to, church groups, actually going to church and being an active part of the church, you know, people might, be more apt to get help. Women are a little more likely than men to seek assistance. Greater the distance from mainstream society, the greater resistance to voluntary treatment. So that we'll talk about involuntary treatment along the way, but you're going to have more involuntary commitments with people that have a closer proximity. I forget what lecture we talked about this in my semester. But we have Hans Selye, the fight or flight 3 syndrome. What are some physical symptoms that you'll see in somebody in fight or flight? Tachycardia, okay. Tachypnea, sweating. How will their eyes be?
Dilated.
Dilated pupils. How about the skin? Could be clammy, it could be pale or flushed, depending. And then Hans Selye also had the general adaptation syndrome. You'll see that capital GAS, 3 stages, alarm reaction. You know, you had that burst of energy. Stage of resistance. The body attempts to resist or adapt to the stress. Stage of exhaustion, your energy is totally depleted. The immediate response to the stage of exhaustion, you feel run down and have no energy. And the sustained response is when you start getting the chronic symptoms. Depression, sleep deprived, chronic anxiety. And with the immediate response, you know, you're feeling run down, you have no energy, what hormones are affected with that?
Which what?
When you get the run down feeling, like what hormone are we depleted of? It could be, but glucocorticoids too. You know, when we have an alarm reaction, that's when we'll have like a burst of glucocorticoids. So psychological responses, anxiety and grief. 2 major primary physiological responses, patterns to stress, and we'll talk about both of them a little bit later. And I think again later in a couple weeks. Variety of thoughts, feelings, behaviors, adapting to them, determined by the extent to which thoughts, feelings, and behaviors interfere with your functioning. So, you know, if we have mild grief and mild anxiety, the adaptation isn't as tough as somebody that has severe anxiety or severe grief. Next slide.
Yeah.
So mild anxiety, what happens then? Most of us experience mild anxiety during certain situations, you know, with uneasy stomach, slight tachycardia, you know, maybe a little bit higher than your norm, but not above 100, let's say. You know, mild anxiety is beneficial a lot of times. It helps with us focusing, it helps us to be alert to things going on. Moderate anxiety can become more severe or overwhelming. It's when you place all of your attention on that one thing that's giving you the anxiety. Muscle tension, sweaty palms, shaky voice, change in sleep patterns. A person in moderate anxiety is going to be less confident in what they do and more sensitive with things. Severe is when we start to stop thinking rationally and can lead to the next stage of panic. Panic, you know, you're withdrawn, you have tachypnea, you're agitated, confused, can't think clearly, severe muscle tension, much more than moderate, heavy perspiration, like sweat from every gland of your body. And then we can go a little bit further, like this says anxiety disorder, but we can have panic disorder also. Panic attacks regularly, palpitations, nausea, lightheaded, passing out with panic attacks. Anybody know anybody that has panic attacks? How bad are they for them? Yeah. My mom used to have panic attacks. She was diagnosed with agoraphobia. Anybody know what that is? Yeah, fear of crowds. And she's Friends Hospital down the boulevard. She used to see like I don't know, psychiatrist, whatever, there. Probably psychiatrist, because I think she was prescribed meds. But like the therapy helped more. Like when I was this was like when I was probably first or second grade. And by the time I was like in third or fourth grade, like she like ran for PTA president and won. And like she started doing like crazy stuff I guess at her therapist's, suggestion. And ever since then, she was pretty okay. Except in like in traffic where there's like a really skinny lane because of construction or something, she'll just stop the car and just not go anywhere, take the keys out and call for help, which is usually, was my dad. But she did up on the boulevard. This is 17 years ago when my son was born. She had stayed with me the first week after I had him. And she was going back home and she made it to, not the turnpike quite yet, but there's Dunkin' Donuts on the boulevard. She pulled over because she's like, it's too many dividers, I can't go. So I had to go up with my husband and he followed so I could get home. I drove her car and he followed so we can get her home safe. She just panics. And she probably, anxiety disorder, she was definitely diagnosed with that in recent years. Not medicated or anything. She might take like what do you call it, an Ativan to sleep or something, but it's not for anxiety, But you can get that panic. And for her to just, like she stopped at a highway up near her house, because it really wasn't the highway, she was getting off the exit, and they had the cement barriers, and it was a really small, entry, and she just stopped blocking traffic from getting off, because it was only a one-lane thing, and she stopped, and my dad had to go. It was like, they were in Bethlehem, and she was in Allentown, it was like a good 40 minutes away where she was, for her, because she couldn't drive, she just panicked and turned the car off and said, heck with it. And luckily that was a time with cell phones. Like, what did she do back when I was little? There was no cell phones or anything. So anxiety, a good definition of anxiety, managed to a severe level that remains unresolved over an extended period of time. And it can contribute to a lot of other things with the anxiety. Extended periods of severe anxiety possibly result in psychoneurotic patterns of behavior. So we have neurosis and psychosis, which are two very different things, but sometimes people use them interchangeably. Neurosis, you're more depressed, you feel guilty, envy, anger, and anxiety, as opposed to psychosis, it's a true mental illness. Could be resulted as substance abuse or extreme stress or trauma. PTSD can lead to a severe psychosis. You're not always experiencing the after effects of the trauma that you witnessed or were a part of, but when it can get to a psychosis level. Neurosis is really, you're particularly sensitive to environmental stressors that are around, and every situation is menacing and major, I have tickets for the Phillies game this Saturday, and I dread the traffic already. I feel like I need to leave the seventh inning because I'll hit less traffic or whatever the case may be. So. These are all ego defense mechanisms. but I'm gonna tell you about them. So write fast, so I don't have to keep repeating, you know what I mean? If they are in your book too, they're verbatim in your book, I'm just reading what the book says, but it's nice to have this information. Compensation, you're overachieving in an area to compensate from a failure in another area. Okay, that's compensation. Can you give me an example of that, maybe?
No, the one I'm thinking of is not
It's appropriate, it's a learning environment.
Are you thinking like a truck?
appropriate.
Napoleon syndrome.
That's a classic, I'm sorry.
That's a classic,
Sorry,
yes.
fellas.
I didn't even think of that, actually. That's a good one. Denial. You refuse to experience a situation. So something happened, and you're just refusing to be a part of it, you're refusing to experience it. Displacement. Your mind substitutes a new goal for a previous or a dangerous, previously dangerous or unacceptable goal. So you had goals, now you're displacing them with a new goal.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Your mind substitutes a new goal for a previous, dangerous, or unacceptable one. Identification is when you adopt a mannerism or a behavior to gain acceptance from somebody. Like identifying with the cool group in high school. You know, you want to be a sporto or whatever they were called back then in the 80s. Headbanger, listen to heavy metal, whatever. You know, you're identifying with mannerisms and behaviors of one group to be a part of it. Intellectualization, being attached emotionally and taking a neutral stance. So you might be attached to something, but emotionally, but you're not going to dive fully in until you learn more about it, maybe. Intellectualization, did I say that wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. Introjection takes something and adopts it as its own. So introjection, what would be an example of that? Can you think of anything that's right? I'm aggravated they didn't put an example down.
I'm trying, I'm sorry.
Build your own teaching method?
Oh, here we go, I did put an example down. My eyes are getting buggy.
Sounds like we gotta
Listening to
go.
political talk at work and explaining as your own concepts later that day to somebody else. If somebody was just talking about Bernie Sanders, you sort of like what you heard, so you make a dinner time conversation with your family. So you're listening to, you're take something and adopt it as your own. So you have new political thoughts because you heard somebody that sounded smart earlier in the day. Isolation, you separate ideas and feelings from the rest of your thoughts. Projection, you blame something externally, events or people, for how you're really feeling. When you're aggravated, something happened at work and you come home and you're projecting, cursing at your family, being aggravated, not cooking a good dinner or something, just to be spiteful because you're angry at something that happened outside of that realm, okay?
So, can I just say,
Yes.
those, knowing those defense mechanisms and examples of them, that's a highly testable area. Not just for our classroom test, but just ATI and then ultimately NCLEX-wise. There will
Yeah,
always be.
there's not, they don't get really, really deep with mental health stuff. But this, you know, cause it's sort of an extension of therapeutic communication.
Right,
So
but there's commonly questions about that, so. Now perk up. Back to stars, star that slide.
you guys need a break, it's 10 after 8. Yeah, you want a 5-minute break, is that okay with just 5?